Hi there, in this video you're going to see me doing a bit of work on this painting behind me. This is actually the painting I did for my most recent online workshop about painting seascapes. So I'm just using a little bit of oil paint to finish off the painting, give it a bit of extra depth, a bit of subtlety, a little bit of luster to the colours. This was a kind of bonus video that I did just after the course finished. So yeah, I hope you enjoy watching that. And if you're interested in the other workshops that I've got on my website, here's the link. Please check it out. Okay, see you soon. Hi there, as promised I'm going to do this extra video for you where I'm adding a bit of oil paint to the painting as it is now. I didn't really want to do this in the main part of the course because I really wanted to focus on the getting ideas, working with them in the studio and then looking at the composition and how to approach doing your painting, your studio painting. Thinking about the composition, thinking about all the steps that you can really go through to get a really creative and interesting image without worrying too much about complicating the mediums and the different types of paints that you were using. So as you know, I've kept it very simple in the course where we're just using a very basic palette and really focusing on your creativity and the way that you're thinking about developing the ideas in a practical way as you actually make the painting. Because I really like the painting as it is. I like the feeling of this energetic wave. I've got a little bit of lichen colour. I've got my little limpets that I was putting in. Even got this bit of seaweed, bright seaweed colour. And all those things were things that I saw while I was outside and experienced. And they're all represented in the image. They're not in exactly the same way as when I saw them. These limpets and all these rocky shapes, they were in a slightly different place when I was actually out sketching, and certainly so was this green seaweed. But they're all here. It's all part of that experience, all part of that time that I spent by that seascape on the coast, doing the painting, getting the ideas, experiencing it. So I think the painting represents that experience, and that's really what I was going for. But on a practical level, even though I like the composition, I like the colour, I generally like the tonal arrangement, I think it's working pretty well. To finish it off, I often add a bit of oil paint. And the reason I do that is because the oil paint adds just a level of subtlety to the tonal variation in the painting, and also it adds a lot of luster to the colour. It's a little bit like when you're adding varnish to your paintings. It brings out all the intensity in the colours, because it's quite flat at the moment and it's quite matte. Because acrylic, as it dries, it does tend to go quite matte, and as you know from watching the videos, I haven't used any acrylic painting mediums because I don't really like them. I don't really like the plastic quality of acrylic painting mediums. So I just use water to dilute the paint while I'm actually building up the structure of the painting and getting the composition. But now, if I use some oil painting medium, and it will really bring out the colours and the depth of the colour. And I won't have to do a huge amount, but I just want to just add a little bit of oil paint, just add maybe a little bit of subtlety here and there, and let's see what it looks like once I start building it up. Okay, what I'm going to do is use some of this fast drying oil painting medium. So this is an alkyd medium. It has the same function, I suppose, as linseed oil. It's an oil painting medium, but it's much faster drying. So it's an alkyd, which is like a, I don't really know the science behind it, but it's a modified natural resin. So it dries really quickly, but has the same kind of consistency as linseed oil. Now you can get different types of this. A really popular one is Liquin, which I think is a Winsor & Newton brand. This is just Jackson's Art, which is an art supplies company here in the UK where I get all my materials from. I'm not sponsored by Jackson's Art in any way, it's just that that's where I get all my stuff from. Now I find that this is actually quite a nice one. I don't really like Liquin, I find it a little bit slimy, but if you can't get hold of this one, you could probably get Liquin slightly easier in different places. But I'll put a link up on the website for this one so you can see which one exactly it is. But it's quite sloshy, and like I said, it's a little bit like linseed oil, but I will dilute it slightly with some white spirit, because even though it's quite runny, it's still quite thick and I want it just a little bit thinner for what I'm doing. So I'll have a go at that. Now what I'm going to do is, most of the work I'm going to do here I think is going to be on a flat level. I don't really want it on the wall because I'm putting these quite thin medium on the painting. I don't want it to just run off and have like drips. When it's drying, it won't dry evenly. I'll have drips in it, so I'm going to have it flat. So I'm just going to move the painting so it's flat on a horizontal surface again, and then we'll crack on. Okay, so as you can see, I've got this flat again on the table here, and I'm just going to add a bit of this medium to this tin here. So it's just an empty coffee tin. So I'll just pour it out so you can see what it's like. So you can see it's quite runny, but it is quite gloopy as well. So that's why I'm going to thin it down just a little bit with a bit of white spirit, just to make it a bit easier to brush on. I just put a little bit in, that was probably about 70-30, medium to white spirit. And just to get it going, rather than using any colour right now, I've just got this quite wide soft brush that I use for varnishing actually. I'm just going to brush this onto the surface straight away. And I'm going to go all over the whole painting. And this will have the effect of kind of varnishing it, where it will bring out all the colours and the depth, particularly in the dark areas. It really helps with these darker areas. Hopefully you can see that it's really bringing out a lot of the contrast in these darker areas here. I'll do some close-ups so you can see it properly. I'm expecting it's going to be really good on this blue as well. It will really bring out the blue. Up here, this deep blue. So I'm just going to keep going over the whole surface. This will also have the effect of sealing in any of the different types of materials that I've got on here, because I use quite a lot of different types of paint. And drawing materials as well. This will really seal everything in. It's nice and dry now, this painting, and I know that I had quite a lot of these pastels on here, but this isn't really picking any of that up, so I'm being quite light with the brush here. Now it looks like it's darkening this area down a little bit, but I don't really think it is. I think as it dries, it's just that it's soaking in. I think as it dries, it will go back to the tone that it was like before. And you can see why I'm doing this flat as well, because if I wasn't doing this flat, all this medium would be running down the painting. I'm not putting it on thick, but it's still going to be quite fluid. I don't want it all just running off onto the floor. Just going on making sure I haven't got any bits that are pooling together and going to be causing me problems. Yeah, I mean obviously because it's got all that medium on it now, it's gone quite glossy. So I might struggle with the lights a little bit to show you exactly what I've got. But hopefully you can see the effect it's had on these darker colours particularly. It's really brought out the lustre in the colours, made them much punchier. And in this blue area as well, because it's all a bit glossy now, it just has the effect of making the light that hits the painting bounce around more. When you think about what's happening, you know, if your surface of your painting is quite flat, quite matte, when the light hits it, it doesn't bounce off the painting. It's kind of absorbed and scattered more by the surface. If it's quite, you know, if it's matte and quite a textured matte surface. When you've got something that's a bit glossier, the light that goes into the painting just sort of bounces around, and a lot more of it's reflected back. And that has the effect of making your colours look a lot richer, deeper and a bit more intense. And this is why I was saying I don't really need to do a huge amount to the painting, I don't think. I'm just going to add a little bit of colour, but you know, not a massive amount. So with the oil paint that I'm going to use, it's the same palette. I'm going to use the same palette as I had before. So I've got black and white and Prussian blue, yellow ochre, and a bit of burnt sienna. So it's the same colours. So I think that's quite important, because if I start going in here now with lots of different colours, it's going to really change the painting. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to make any dramatic changes to the structure of the painting. I really like the way that it's working at the moment. I just want to add a few of these colours just to enhance what's here. So what I'm going to do here, I've actually got a bit of board that I'm using as a kind of palette, and I've got a bit of the Prussian blue and a bit of black. Now this is a very similar process to what I was doing when I was adding the washy paint to my to the painting, you know, with the acrylic. Bit blacker, I think. I just want to sort of reinforce what's here. Don't want to necessarily make any big changes. So where it's dark, I'm painting some of this in, and I'm going to be working back through it. It's a bit intensely blue. Let's knock some of that back a bit with some of the black. And I'll work back through it with the rag as well, in a very similar way to what I was doing with the acrylic. But because it's oil paint, it just behaves in a slightly different way. It behaves in a more natural way. That's intense. Let's get some rags on there. And I'll be taking most of this paint off again, but it will just leave enough to make these sort of subtle transitions between the colours. Let's bring that line out. And working back through the paint is such a nice way of working, because it's like you're working with the light. You're not adding dark, you're revealing light. And once this is dry, what I'll do is I'll give it another layer of either medium or the diluted medium, or maybe some varnish. Because obviously as I'm wiping back through this, I'm changing the amount of paint and medium that's on the surface, so it's going to be a bit uneven in terms of the glossiness. So once it's dry in a day or two, I'll be able to revarnish it or just add a bit more medium to even out the glossiness across the whole painting. And as I was saying, although I'm not making any radical changes to the structure of the painting, the oil paint just adds a layer of subtlety that I find it really difficult to do with acrylic. It's a very similar look to the acrylic. It's not, and it's obviously the process is the same as when I was doing the wash. But the oil paint's just a bit more natural, I find. It just creates a more natural look to the finished painting. Okay, I don't want to do any more to that right now. I might add a bit to this blue area here, but I wanted to maybe add something a bit washier. So I'm going to treat the paint in a quite a similar way. I've just still got some of that same colour on here. And let's do a similar kind of thing, just pour the medium on. And let it run, or sort of spread a little bit. Let's go around the other side. just bringing out things that are already here. Rather than reorganising the painting, I'm just reinforcing marks and colours, shapes that are already on the painting. I like that mark. Let's bring that out a bit. So obviously I can't, so I've come down here just so I can just about see the painting and talk to you. Obviously I can't lift it up right now and put it on the wall because you know, it'll run off, the paint will run off and that won't look very good. But I'll take some close-up shots to show you as well. But you don't need to do a huge amount. That's the thing with the oil, you don't need to add a huge amount. The painting was essentially finished. So I think you have to be a little bit careful when you're doing this kind of work, that you don't start to repaint the painting. And obviously if you do that, if you start adding things, changing the paint and changing the composition, I mean, to be honest, that's absolutely fine. Of course you can do that. But from that point on, you have to remember that it's an oil painting. You can't go back from here to adding acrylic or any kind of water-based paints because they won't stick. This medium, the oil paint, will resist anything water-based. So you can't do that. So it's an oil painting from here on in. So if I do anything else to this now, it has to be with oil paint. I may add a few little marks here and there, but it's just essentially, I'm not really going to fiddle around with it too much. I just wanted to bring out, with that little bit of addition with the paint there, just bring out a little bit of the subtlety in the colour and the depth of the colour and the tones that you get from adding this kind of medium and this paint. It just makes a huge difference to the finished look of the painting, in my opinion. Like I said, you could get a similar effect with acrylic mediums, a glossy acrylic medium, but for me, they don't have quite the same natural quality that the oil paint and the oil medium has. So that's it really. I hope you enjoyed that. This was just a little addition to the course. If you want to have a play around with the oil paint, by all means, go for it. But do remember, once you've started with oil, there's no going back. Okay, thanks a lot, and I'll see you on the next one.